Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore. And I overall really enjoyed this episode because we got more of Din kind of continuing to teach Grogu, and Grogu actually having character moments rather than him, he would do kind of cute stuff as well, but he was actually more active in the plot in this episode, really kind of showcasing his character's growth because we see him being afraid, having to deal with his fears, having to do things that he normally hasn't really been able to do so far yet, and showing kind of character growth in his kind of journey on becoming a Mandalorian, which was really kind of cool. And this also dovetails with Din's quest and Bo-Katan. So, we see that Peli and Tatooine, the kind of mechanic woman, it's Bunta Eve, whatever that is, and there's like celebrations and stuff going on, and the Sardanian's kind of like arguing with her. She's like, listen, I can get this stuff, it'll take about like a month or whatnot, but if you pay me a deposit, I could probably get it done quicker. And then she kind of like waits for him to leave, and then she has the Jawas come in, and they stole his shit to then sell back to him, and she's like, just make sure you like paint him and change it differently. It's like, god damn. And we see that Din and Grogu come in. It's like, oh yeah, okay, cool, my buddies and everything. And then Din's like, hey, can I talk to the Jawas real quick? They're like, alright, cool. I need an IG memory circuit. And they can't get one. They're like, nah, that's old. And then she's like, you know what? I could give you this R5D4 unit. How about that? I'll spritz it up, give it an oil bath, and you can go on your way. Because he explains that he needs it to like scout ahead and everything, and that it needs to be rated for spelunking. And at first she's like, eh. And then she's like, I'll reinstall the droid port and everything. We'll be good to go and all that. And of course the droid's like, I don't want to do this, and I'm afraid. And she's just like, yeah, be careful with it. It's kind of a little bit fragile and whatnot. I was like, I need this to like scout shit. That's kind of dangerous and everything. And she's like, you'll be alright. And then we see them going, and they get back into the Mandalore system, and we see Din, of course, reiterating to, before that, we see them kind of going through, we see Grogu looking at the fireworks and everything, and having that kind of like childlike wonder about what's kind of going on, and then we go in, and I like to call it those kind of little moments. I really can't really do that when I do like a full kind of season review, because sometimes I stick to kind of more pertinent kind of information, but you see him and he's like, yeah, it's like, alright, cool. And then Din goes back into pretty much dad mode, explaining how to like read the maps, how reading maps and understanding where you are is very important for Mandalorian, so that way you won't be lost and everything. Showing where they've been, where they are over Mandalore now, how Din didn't grow up on Mandalore, but he grew up over there on Concordia, and that they had went to the other planet in the system to visit Bo-Katan, and then they kind of go into the atmosphere, and it's kind of shaky at first because of all the cloud cover and everything, but then they get down, and it looks alright. I mean, granted, alright as it can be, the planet that's been like fusion bombed to pretty much glass and everything. But we see that some structures are still intact. We see the kind of glassing kind of material that's around, and they kind of just set down. They send out the R5 unit to see if everything's kind of alright. And let's see. Let me see here. Yeah, the R5 unit. And they're like, alright, let's see what's kind of going on with this place. And then he's like, look. And Grogu's kind of anxious. He doesn't want anything to happen to it. He gets very attached to, things and people that they kind of come in contact with. Now, granted, he is still kind of a baby, but I think it also deals with the trauma that he had gotten once Order 66 happened and all the people that were protecting him died and went away, and how Din is one of the only kind of constants that have kind of been in his life that has stayed around for so long. And since they've got the R5 unit as kind of like their companion on the journey, he's like, oh, okay. He's like, look, you can watch it on this screen. But then it drops off. It's like, ah, crap. So then he's like, listen, get into your pod, seal it up. I'm going to pressurize my helmet. I'm going to go out. I'm going to see what happens. And this is a part where you kind of get, well, not this part, where they're kind of like going for the mines of Mandalore. Where you get what I guess people could consider Dead Space. I consider it more of like building atmosphere and understanding kind of what's going on at the place and getting us immersed into where it's kind of going. Because he goes in, we see stuff kind of going, like we see him go into this kind of like little cave system, see this kind of like ruins and everything before he gets beset by these kind of, let me see what they're called, Alamites, which are these kind of troll things. And he has a hard time. He tries to use his blaster first, but then ends up using the Darksaber, and again, it is not a wieldy weapon for him. He has some kind of trouble using it, and that's important because we see another character pop on later that has an easier time utilizing the Darksaber. But he kills them as well enough, and then finds the R5 unit. It's like, oh god, alright, and he's like, yeah, I got screwed up, and they go back to the ship. They're able to take the reading, and the atmosphere is breathable. And he's like, Bo-Katan was right. This place isn't cursed. And so he has Grogu come with him. They then start their journey through the ruins to try and get to the mines of Mandalore. And they kind of go down, and they're just kind of like going. I do like the kind of silence that they've got. Grogu does some babbling, but Din is able to understand him. And then Din sometimes comments on stuff that goes on in the world, but he's kind of more the doer rather than the talker kind of thing. As they're like kind of going around, Grogu's kind of like a little bit scared of seeing some of the kind of creatures and everything before they get a little bit deeper, and they find a Mandalorian helmet. But this then sets a kind of trap as Din is captured by this giant mech thing, and you're like, what the hell is that? And Grogu's able to like get back before we see that he follows it, understands kind of what's going on, and sees that Din gets kind of locked up. And then this kind of cybernetic kind of creature similar to General Grievous pops up out of the kind of carapace of the mech that has taken Din, and he kind of puts him in this weird kind of like spit thing, and you're like, is he gonna cook him? What's he gonna do with him? And then Grogu waits for the cyborg to kind of like peter off, and then he kind of gets up. We see that the blaster's been taken off Din, the Darksaber as well, and Grogu tries to utilize the Force to get him out, but Din's like, listen, go find Bo-Katan, get help. Because he has been kind of a little bit sedated and discombobulated, but Grogu's able to go. He like blasts his way out. This kind of creature tries to get at him. Alamite tries to get at him, but he utilizes the Force to blast it back, gets up in the starship, and blasts off to Bo-Katan. And it's funny, it's like, oh, we have an unexpected visitor, and Bo-Katan's like, I ain't dealing with this shit. I told you, leave me the fuck alone kind of shit. But then, of course, Grogu pops up, and she has her droid download the data, and she's like, okay, something's really bad. Din would not leave Grogu by himself. What's going on? And then we see Bo-Katan's ship, which is actually pretty cool and very kind of reminiscent of a Jedi Starfighter. A Jedi Starfighter from like Episode 3 mixed with the kind of Imperial shuttle transport that we've seen, because its wings are up front. Not up front, its wings are kind of rabbit-eared first, and then it takes off, and then it goes down and blasts on off. And Bo-Katan kind of gives her a kind of spiel that she used to rule the planet. She was part of the ruling family, and that this place used to be a whole lot better than these ruins as they go in. And she's like, listen, I'm going to need you to show me where Din is, where the Mando is. And she puts on her helmet, and they kind of go in, and she's just reminiscing about everything, and she's like, I ruled this place, and look what happened to it. And it's giving us kind of more kind of understanding of how she views everything, and why she kind of feels dejected with not having the Darksaber and losing the rest of the Mandalorians of trying to retake Mandalore, as they then start going through the ruins again. And we see that Grogu is afraid of the one kind of creature, and she's like, I know you're afraid, but I'm going to need you to lead me to Din to help save him. And then Grogu gathers up his courage and does that. He leads her through, but they get to a kind of section, and we get to see Bo-Katan really going off. Now, I have not seen Rebels, so the thing is, I think that would add more value to understanding Bo-Katan's character. But I still think we are getting a good enough kind of relay on her character that you aren't completely screwed over. But we see that there's some stuff going on, something's up there, and she then starts utilizing her blasters, taking on these Alamites, and I really love the action scenes because it showcases how she's kind of more Din's more practical in his movements, if that makes sense. He's not as fluid, and that really comes across with his utilization of the Darksaber. We really see that Bo-Katan has a more kind of fluidity to her style. If my description makes sense, she's able to like go with more of a kind of flow in combat. Not that Din can't understand the flow of combat, but you see him more as like blunter, kind of forceful movements, if that makes sense. Whereas, I mean, granted, she has power behind her attacks and everything, but she's able to like move with an agility and a grace that's kind of different than Din's. And utilizing all of her kind of Mandalorian armaments and like a shield that pops up, an energy shield, and the kind of knives and everything that she's got, and the wires, and it's great seeing her do all this kind of stuff. And then she goes to Grogu at the end. She's like, "You didn't think your dad was the only Mandalorian, did you?" And then it's like, Grogu's like, "All right," and okay, so they then are able to get there, and we see that the cyborg is attempting to drain the fluids from Din, which kind of makes sense. It looks like he needs organic kind of material to kind of stay alive, and since the planet has been pretty much deserted since the Purge, it would make sense that he would try and get like as pure of a new kind of source as possible. But they're able to shoo him off for a moment, and then she's like trying to get him out, and he's like, "Behind you," because the thing had gotten back into its kind of mech. And then Bo-Katan is on her back legs, but she's able to utilize the Darksaber and utilizes it more effectively and more fluidly than Din. And it's like, oh yeah, interesting. I don't have really a kind of problem with this because Din has a harder time connecting with it, and it seems that Bo-Katan has a connection with it of being able to utilize it very well and very effectively, like that fluidity I was talking about, because she takes the damn thing apart and the thing tries to escape, but she's able to fight it again and take it out. And it's like, oh, right, cool. As we see, it's kind of, I'd be like, stab it in the eye, though! Stab it in the eye! And then we see that Din pretty much passes out. And then we see that Bo-Katan is making this kind of soup. We learn it's Pog soup, and that Mandos have supposedly been raised on it forever, but Din has not had it. And Din thanks her and everything, is able to drink it without taking his helmet off, and she kind of praises Grogu for what he's done to kind of like help him and everything like that. And she's like, "Listen, we need to get you out so that way you can get you back into health and everything like that." And he's like, "I need to get to the mines of Mandalore." And I'm like, "All right, fine, I'll lead you there." And she gives a kind of spiel that she did this whole kind of thing with the living waters and all that, and that she felt it was a farce kind of ritual, and that she didn't know if her father was proud of her or not. She did it mainly to make her father proud, and Din was like, "Yeah, I think you did." And she's like, "I don't know, man." Like, her reminiscing, her trying to understand these rituals and what they achieved, how with what kind of Din's sect and everything, that the Mandos splintered apart because of stupid differences that didn't make any kind of sense. It weakened them to the point that this could happen. And it's like, yeah, that's a big thing to talk about and to understand. And they lead into the mines, and we see them, and we get the whole kind of thing of Mandalore, and how he fought the mythosaur here and like claimed it for them, and how it began his legend and everything. Kind of like just an old kind of monument kind of thing that she's able to read. She's like, yeah, let me give you the tour. And then we see that Din decides to take off his armaments, like the Darksaber and his blasters, and then starts reciting what he needs to cleanse himself as he goes into the living waters. And we don't see anything at the beginning that makes that there's anything different, but as he starts going deeper, he then drops like a fucking rock, and then Bo-Katan's like, ah shit, puts on her helmet, kind of pressurizes it, goes down after him, and we see that he'd pretty much just fallen down into like this giant kind of abyss thing, and she's able to get him. He took off his jetpack as well, but Bo-Katan was able to use it underwater, which is a very nice thing to be able to do. And they're coming back up, and the thing is, they see a mythosaur, and it's like, oh shit, and they blast out, and that's where it ends. It's like, ah shit, does this fulfill the requirements for Din to be reinstated as a Mandalorian? Will they have to deal with this mythosaur going forward? I do like it because it then brings the kind of like circle ring kind of, hey, Mandalore has fallen, there will be a new Mandalore, and probably have to deal with a mythosaur or something mythosaur-like to bring the people of Mandalore back. And it's like, all right, I didn't expect us to go this fast to be on Mandalore, deal with the living waters, but we now have to deal with the repercussions and what kind of goes on. Does this work with Din? Since Bo-Katan didn't really get the Darksaber, she did give it back to Din. She didn't win it through combat, but will she challenge him to combat to get the Darksaber? And is she really the best qualified to lead Mandalore? Or is Din the best qualified? Will she teach him how to utilize the Darksaber more effectively? Will Din change up his kind of creed ways? Because he's still set within the creed of the Watch. However, he might be thinking of other kind of ways as well, because Bo-Katan shows a different way that Mandalorians can live. It's not that much different, except taking off the helmet, and just that's kind of a big kind of thing. But we'll see what kind of happens here. It's like, okay, now I'm more like, alright, I don't know what's going to be happening, because I thought that this quest would probably take longer, but we'll see what comes from the repercussions of this quest that will lead on to maybe other kind of plot points. Maybe this was a bigger kind of thing to be like, okay, somebody needs to gather all of the Mandalorians and bring back Mandalore, the planet, help fix it and everything like that. And that could be Din's quest after he has got himself back. And since he is able to now show that Mandalore is not a diseased, cursed place, that might give other Mandalorians, like the Armorer and the group that she's usually with, be like, hey, maybe we should go back. And Bo-Katan might be like, maybe we should do something like that and link up with that. And then, of course, Din can continue his teachings for Grogu and see how that kind of works out. Because I think he's kind of being set up, like, Din might be set up to be the Mandalore to bring back Mandalore. I know that sounds weird. But that Grogu might be that kind of fusion of Jedi and Mandalorian to, like, lead Mandalore properly. We'll have to kind of see. Because Bo-Katan even talked about how Mandalorians and Jedi used to be allies. So it'll be kind of cool to see that kind of allyship back together again. So we'll see what goes on. I'm still excited. I like what we're seeing with the characters. My biggest positive for this episode was that Grogu did things. We saw character growth on him. We saw him be afraid, do brave things, still utilize the Force in his own kind of character ways, and I hope to see more of that going forward. That's really kind of cool. He's not just a plot object to be cute and to be rescued by Din. Now, granted, he doesn't have his full kind of capabilities, to, like, communicate with others, but he has the Force. He's learning his way around. He's learning how to do things and utilize the resources around him. It's really kind of cool and a big kind of growth from Season 1 and Season 2. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.